I was raised in a nominally Catholic home. We were Catholic, we went to church, we went to religious education, we received the sacraments, and we took our religion and our faith seriously, but it wasn't a daily reality. At least it wasn't for myself and my brothers. But when I went off to college, I fell off even more. I stopped going to Mass on Sunday. I didn't think it was all that important. I considered myself Catholic, but I really didn't regard practicing all that important. I did believe that God loved me, and I did believe in God. But beyond that, I didn't have a whole lot of formed thoughts. Around my second year into college, I had an experience that related to the Blessed Virgin Mary, and specifically Our Lady of Fatima, that touched me. And through this experience, I started to rethink what I thought I knew was important. And I realized that I found myself in a bit of a contradiction. If I believe in God and I believe that Our Lady of Fatima appeared 100 years ago or so in Fatima, Portugal, then 1 + 1 = 2. I have to be Catholic, and yet here I am articulating and believing things that are clearly in contradiction to the Church. So I recognized this contradiction, and I remember one time in particular, I was taking a walk and I stopped off at the Newman Center, and I went in. Oddly enough, it was open. Nobody was there, and I saw that there was a kneeler in one of the pews that was down. I took it as an invitation. So I knelt down and I prayed, and I basically said, God, I believe in you. I believe that your mother, the Virgin Mary, appeared at Fatima, and therefore I know logically that means I have to be Catholic because nobody else believes in Fatima except Catholics. At the same time, all these teachings, I just think that's kind of nuts and crazy, and I thought they were unenlightened. And over the course of the next year or so, I was stunned. Information started coming my way that filled in the gaps of what I thought I knew. And I realized that these teachings and these beliefs, it seemed antiquated and out of touch and superficial, were actually profound and noble, and they almost seemed bottomless relative to their foundations. And I realized then that there is not a real contradiction between the Catholic faith and the truth of God. So around that time then, I started coming back to the church, coming back to Mass. But as I continued to come back and continued to learn, my eyes started to open. But I think, as is the case with many of us, when our faith starts to expand and become informed, and we're undergoing a conversion, or in this case a reversion, I think what happens is that our mind and our soul and our heart outpace our lives. So my life didn't change much. I was living in a fraternity, I was going to my classes, and everything around me had all the same trappings, had all the same activities, day in, day out, through the weekends. But interiorly, I was changing. And so it took time, there's a lag time between the interior to start manifesting itself exteriorly. So by the time I graduated from college, unlike when I had started, I was going to Mass. In fact, I was secretly going to daily Mass. Just not that I was hiding from anybody, but nobody else was there. So it was a private encounter going to daily Mass. And I started to develop an addiction to attending Mass. It's the greatest addiction anyone could ever claim and call their own in this life. And so by the time I graduated from college, I didn't have an explicit thought of a vocation, but I clearly had the ingredients of one, which I would later discover in the year or two to follow. I've mentioned already how I consider my vocation to be connected to Our Lady of Fatima and the events of Fatima. And I think of over 100 years now of people praying the Rosary for all the intentions that were just laid before these children and the world through these messages of Our Lady of Fatima. And I consider myself to be connected to it in such a way that I am confident that the many rosaries have been played throughout the past century in some way contributed to my vocation. And I don't consider myself to be special in that sense. I consider myself to be indebted to the people who prayed so earnestly.